Hi, welcome to the Crypto Republic. Before we dive in, if you're serious about staying ahead in this once-in-a-lifetime financial shift, make sure you like this video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Republic. Last night, I ran the numbers on XRP, line by line, model by model, and the math didn't just check out, it rewired the way I think about this entire market. If these numbers hold, we're staring at a supply story that flips the timeline on digital scarcity from a century away to within our lifetime. And by the end of this video, you'll see why the conversation around XRP may shift from too much supply to not nearly enough. I'll show you the models, the mechanics, and the scenarios, and then you decide. I wasn't looking for a hot take. I was looking for a pattern. It started with a simple question. If circulating supply growth slows and then stops, what actually happens to XRP's economics over time? That's when the puzzle pieces began clicking. Escrow mechanics, transaction fee burn, liquidity migration, and the potential for tokens to get parked in places they can't be easily sold. Not hype, mechanics. Since 2017, XRP has operated with a predictable escrow release schedule. Each month, a fixed amount becomes available, and the portion that isn't needed gets relocked. Think of it like a reservoir gate. Water's allowed through, but most flows back behind the dam unless demand downstream truly needs it. Here's the crucial bit. This schedule is not infinite. At some point, the reservoir hits its designed end state. When that happens, the market loses a major predictable source of new supply. That doesn't guarantee moonshots, but it tightens the room in which price discovery happens. An analogy here, historically, right? Stay with me. In the 1800s, America had a predictable schedule for issuing banknotes under various acts until those frameworks shifted. When a monetary structure changes, behavior changes. Scarcity timing is a structural shift. Today's XRP steady drip is a feature. Tomorrow, the absence of that drip becomes the feature. Every XRP transaction destroys a fraction, burned forever. On any given day, it's microscopic, but time is the multiplier. We underestimate compounding. We underestimate tiny fractions multiplied by millions of events. Roman aqueducts moved tiny increments of water continuously and built empires. In markets, tiny burns plus persistent usage equals supply drag you only truly feel after the fact. Key insight. Once the escrow tap winds down, those tiny burns are no longer offset by a reliable external inflow. Net effect, gradual supply, contraction pressure. Gradual supply, contraction pressure. Not instant fireworks, but a permanent headwind against supply growth. Now let's talk token parking. Not lost coins, but coins deliberately parked for utility. Wrapped assets, liquidity provisions, cross-chain bridges, payment rail treasuries. These are like hotel rooms for tokens. While a token is checked in, it's not selling on the open market. If meaningful slices of XRP get parked in, wrapped versions of DeFi utility, corporate or fund treasuries for settlement experiments, regulated vehicles that need to hold backing, that effective liquidity float shrinks. Markets don't price total supply. They price what's actually for sale right now. When central banks stockpiling gold, the tradable supply shrinks. Even though total above ground gold doesn't change, price responds to whatever's available at the margin. Here's the beautiful inconvenient truth of markets. You don't need a demand explosion to move price. You need persistence. If a flat or gentle rising demand meets a tightening liquidity supply, price seeks a new equilibrium. Historical reference, okay? In 1971, when the dollar left gold convertibility, the Nixon shock, we didn't see instant chaos, but we did enter a new regime for how value was discovered. XRP's potential regime shift isn't about ideology. It's about plumbing. Change the pipes, change the pressure. The math invites a thesis, a world where XRP's available flow gets thinner, while use cases inch forward. Payments on ledger settlement, cross-border experiments, tokenization rails. None of these guarantee a straight line. Bridges can face security risks. Wrapping standards evolve. Regulation can delay deployments. Institutional pilots can stall. And growth can be lumpy, dormant, and then sudden. The thesis isn't number go up because internet says so. The thesis is mechanics plus time. Reduce reliable inflows, maintain or slowly grow usage, park some float in utility venues, and you've planted a structural bias under price. Here's a conservative scenario. Escrow winds down as designed, but remains tiny but persistent. DeFi treasuries parking modest, outcome. Slow tightening equals price responds over years, not weeks. Base scenario, utility crawl. Same as above, but with a steady rise in cross-border throughput and tokenization pilots. More float parked in wrapped or treasuries. The outcome? Noticeable. Supply-demand squeeze. Periodic re-rating during catalysts. Aggressive scenario. Here's the tipping point. Escrow runs off, coincides with a usage step change, new corridors, institutional tooling, regulated vehicles. Significant token parking plus enduring burns. The outcome? Liquidity holes appear at prior price levels, price gaps upwards to find willing sellers. Note, these are frameworks, not guarantees. The point is to organize thinking around mechanics you can track. We often pretend markets are math problems, but they're human coordination problems. Builders need stable rails. Institutions need compliance. Users need convenience. If XRP's rails make money, motion cheaper, faster, programmable, then usage becomes sticky. Sticky usage equals stickier demand. And when mechanics tighten supply while demand sticks, you'll get those famous market moments where it feels like price is chasing a moving train. Here's a historical. The printing press didn't make knowledge instantly universal. It made it cheap to copy. And over the decades, that changed the world. Utility scales quietly then suddenly. Escrow cadence versus accurate utilization. Is more of the monthly availability getting used or returned? Real transaction growth, not wash. Are meaningful payment corridors scaling? Token parking. How much XRP is wrapped, collateralized, or held in vehicles with low churn? Regulatory clarity milestones. Green lights correlate with stickier institutional flows. Exchange liquid balances. Are sell-side inventories visible, thinning on major venues? None of these alone are magic. Together they compose a market pulse. I'm not your financial advisor. This is education and analysis, not a promise of returns. Crypto is volatile. Never risk rent money. Use security best practices. Diversify your bets. The goal is good process, because in the long run, process beats predictions. When I say the XRP numbers don't lie, I'm not claiming inevitability. I'm pointing to a structure that quietly rewrites the backdrop, drifting towards no new monthly inflows, persistent micro burns, and less ready available float as more tokens get parked for real work. That's not a meme. That's a regime shift you can measure, and it changes how we think about the next chapter for XRP. Not tomorrow morning, but sooner than most timelines, built for a different asset with a different issuance curve. If this breakdown helped you see the broad a little clearer, drop a like. Share this with one person who still thinks supply is the whole story, and subscribe for deeper dives where we put narratives to the test with math. If this opened your eyes, smash that like button, ring the bell, leave a comment with your thoughts, turn on notifications, and most importantly, subscribe to the Crypto Republic, bringing you the truth about XRP, global banking moves, and the wealth transfer already unfolding. Don't just watch history happen. Stay informed, stay ahead, stay in the Republic.